right, welcome back again, everybody. Hey, Rem, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. So
Well, I'm sweaty. I got to warn the people. I am sweaty.
You got sweaty balls.
Oh, it is bad. We've had a heat
Sweaty
wave.
balls.
Oh yeah, that's without question. We've had a heat wave in New England now for a few days, and even though we're like in a room and it may seem like we got our shit together, it's like 90 degrees in here.
You know what the worst thing about this heat wave is, especially for someone like me now who has technically a corporate job. There are days I can wear, because of what I do, I can wear I can wear jeans and all that. But the whole point is, in the summertime, I hate wearing like
polos,
long sleeve shirts and multiple, not long sleeve shirts, long pants in general.
Yeah.
I would wear shorts every day if I could. And yes, multiple shirts. I hate doing shit like that in polos. But I'm in an environment that is mostly like in the 60s. But then once you walk outside and you just get hit with that, you're like, I want to fucking die.
So if I look too shiny, fuck you.
Yeah, well, hey, whatever. I'd say we'll adjust it out in post, but no,
There's
I
no
don't
way
want
to
to fucking do that.
Yeah.
All right, but so Rem, let's give a little backstory to this episode.
Yes.
And the backstory to this episode is about 3 weeks ago, one of our listeners on Twitter, Davey Boy, his real name is Dave Nilson. He's someone I know from my real life, someone I grew up with. So Davey loves the show, and every now and then he'll hit me up on the socials. And so 3 weeks ago, he sent me a screenshot, I believe, through Facebook Messenger, and the screenshot was of several books by the author Chuck Klosterman. Is it Klosterman or Klosterman?
Kloster, I believe.
Klosterman,
yeah.
okay. Because I was going to come on here and just say both because I wasn't
Well, you know,
entirely
maybe
sure.
we're wrong, but let's just go with it.
Okay. So the book, the first one that caught my eye was the 90's, and it's called the 90's, a book. And you had read, and one of the other books, and you had read that book.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the name of that book?
Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs?
Yes, that is it. Yes, that is the name of it.
And I think that I became familiar with him. I forgot to mention this through Spin, actually.
Yeah, because he did write for
magazine.
Spin. So for anyone who doesn't know, little backstory on Chuck Klosterman. Chuck Klosterman is a prolific writer. It's fair to say he's prolific.
Oh, dude.
He is prolific. He was born in 1972.
I'm
I
with
believe
you.
he's 51 years old. He was born in 1972. So he is a Gen Xer through and through. He has written 12 books. I've learned this. He's written 12 books. His focus is pop culture. But he's also written, as you said, we've said, Spin, Esquire, The New Yorker. He wrote for ESPN. He also wrote with Bill Simmons for Grantland. And by the way, Bill Simmons is somebody who focuses on sports but ties in pop culture references. He is a direct descendant as a journalist of Peter Gammons.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever heard of Peter Gammons?
I don't think I have.
Okay, Peter Gammons is from Massachusetts. He wrote for the Boston Globe. He's a sports writer. He covered the Red Sox, and he was great at doing he could be talking about the Red Sox and tie in like the song Tommy.
Oh, that's cool.
Or Pinball Wizard. He could tie in things like that to his writing. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
So someone like Bill Simmons is the direct descendant. And I think Chuck Klosterman is very similar in styles like that.
Okay.
Tying in things of pop culture reference to what he's saying.
Yeah.
So that's something that tied me in. He recommended this book, very similar to the one Jared Burrell recommended to us about Gen Y. But Mr. Nilson gave me this book, and literally my wife and I went out to the nearest Barnes & Noble that does exist. They still do exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this book, the 90's, and I read it in 8 days.
So it's a pretty hefty book, too.
Yeah, it's 337 pages, but it's a deep 337 pages.
Yeah.
And it goes everywhere with pop culture. So you may ask yourself if we're going to segment this episode. I would never segment this. Just way too much in pop culture.
Yeah, let's go with it.
He literally he goes on these rabbit holes of the O.J. Simpson trial and just everything that went on behind that. One thing that references that was the first time we wanted to be part of the news. We wanted our 15 minutes. He pointed out the Ford Bronco and how people are on the overpass holding signs.
Yeah,
to be
supporting
seen.
him.
Yeah, to be seen. Essentially, yeah, supporting whatever. But the point is to be seen.
Yeah.
Point is to be seen.
Look at me culture.
Yeah. He talks about a lot of different things about pop culture. He talks about the importance of The Matrix as a movie. He talks about the importance of grunge. He talks about the importance of the 1970s. And there's so many things I could itemize. He says the epitome of our love for the 70s and the 90s is that 70s show.
Yeah.
It's just you could just make a show called it That 70s Show and people would watch. and it takes place in
Interesting.
Wisconsin, like every other like Happy Days in the 50s took place in Wisconsin. Laverne and Shirley in the 1950s, a show
Wisconsin.
from the 70s took place in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Let's put a fucking show in the 1970s
In Wisconsin.
in Wisconsin.
Hey, they nailed it too.
Like Chuck Klosterman did a great job of that. One thing I want to put this disclaimer out here. Unlike the book about Gen Y, and I'm not knocking those authors, they wrote an academic book. And I appreciate that because I like reading academic.
But Klosterman
books.
is more
Klosterman's all
conversational.
about conversationalist, pop culturist, and this is where, again, I'm not knocking you guys. This is my takeaway from how you wrote it academically. Academic work, whether it's a book, whether it's actually getting educated, it falls into two major categories. You are either being indoctrinated or you're being taught to be a critical thinker.
Oh.
And that doesn't mean it has to happen that way, but that tends to be, in my opinion, that's my takeaway from when I was getting my education.
Yeah.
I was either just being indoctrinated in things I was learning, or there was plenty of opportunity where critical thinking, yeah, okay, great, you can read a fucking book and remember it. But how do you apply that practically?
Yeah.
Like, so that's where I was kind of getting at with when I was reading Klosterman in my mind. And so that is something I appreciate. That's why it's very hard for me to just kind of focus on these like couple topics.
Yeah.
So
I can
I'm gonna
understand that.
So what I'm going to do, because Remy, I've told Remy about the book.
Yeah, we've
Remy,
talked extensively, but like I said, guys, I've been off the grid. I've been hidden. So
Yeah.
this is more going to be Bob's thing, but
But I want to say things so I can get Remy's like his reaction to him.
yeah, a lot of
So
it was very interesting
yeah.
from what you told me so far. And I love
Yeah.
Klosterman. I
Yeah.
recommend people pick him up, and just because you feel like you're talking to someone way smarter than you, that doesn't make you feel dumb.
No, he's more just like a come on this ride with me, everybody. Come on. So before we start, and I'm going to bring this up multiple times like he did. Before we start, there are a couple things I want to lay the groundwork for. One of his themes, and he says it over and over again, is you have to stop looking at the past with your present mindset.
Which
And
is
it's
very hard
easier
to do.
said than done.
Mhm.
And I'm guilty of that because when I look back on the 90s, I look back on, depending on what part of the 90s, because I can do that. I was 8 years old when the 90s started and I was 18 years old when it ended.
Yeah.
That's just facts. That's just facts. And the early part of the 90s to me was magical. It was magical. And the mid 90s and the late 90s
Got more cynical.
it was not just more cynical. That's when my depression started to set in.
Yeah.
That's when I'm developing, and that's where like it just becomes very complex, and just I'm just someone who I felt got lost in the shuffle mentally and emotionally. And I have very a mixed bag feeling about that. But if I'm on having a good day today and I look back on something nostalgically, that good feeling I have will try to it'll try to implant itself on a memory that I was not happy.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can, and it's harder as I get older, but I can be like, no, don't do that. That's not what it was like, Bob.
Redirect.
Don't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
Don't do that. So that's one thing he says over and over again. There's too much to talk about in one episode,
Yeah,
but
it's a lot.
And I would rather people go read this book. It's a phenomenal book. It came out in 2022.
And I'm taking it home to read it. So
Yes, I gave Remy my copy. It frees up some clutter in my house that my wife's probably happy about.